I guess we got to talk about the Biden dropping out thing, too. This is a thing that I'm torn on. I don't actually have a big opinion either way because I'd like my opinion to be backed by data. But as of right now, the only real options are Biden and Harris. It'd be very strange to try to put a different Democratic nominee up this late into the game. We've already had the first presidential debate. The race is well underway, and the DNC has drummed up millions of dollars in support for Biden. Millions more have been drummed up for Trump because he has the billionaire donors on his side. He's got Elon Musk donating, was 25 at first. Now I think it's $45 or $45 million a month to get President Trump elected. It's insane, crazy amounts of money that shouldn't be in politics in the first fucking place. And I want to keep Biden. I've got a few reasons for it. One of them are Biden, he wants to actually have Supreme Court term limits. Something that would actually save us from the horribly fucked up Supreme Court that's been gamed so far by Republicans. It would mark Associated Press says it would mark a major shift for Biden, the former head of Senate Judiciary Committee, who has long resisted calls to reform the High Court. Though since taking office, he has been increasingly vocal about his belief that the court is abandoning mainstream constitutional interpretation. The details were first reported by the Washington Post. Any changes would require congressional approval, which would be unlikely in a divided Congress, but with Republican nominee Donald Trump bragging about putting the 3 justices on the High Court, who are now part of the conservative majority, Biden's call for major changes could help animate his voters. Biden is now considering for a constitutional amendment that would eliminate the broad immunity for presidents granted by the court in its most recent term. After Donald Trump claimed he was immune from prosecution after his actions on January 6th when a mob of his supporters violently descended on the U.S. Capitol. The Supreme Court is completely crazy, and right now, there is an active effort, though that active effort is currently COVID-ridden and bed-ridden, to try to reverse the immunity decision the Supreme Court decided was a good idea. And of course they decided it was a good idea because why wouldn't they? 3 of them were elected by Trump. They knew exactly what they were doing when they got in office. They knew exactly what kind of bullshit they would be covering up for. But there's some polling right now showing that Biden should drop out. We had a lot of this start with George Clooney saying that Biden should drop out, which, is an actor. Cool. But then we found out that Obama actually had spoken with Clooney before and gave him the go-ahead to give that opinion publicly. And now, as far as I can tell, Obama and Nancy Pelosi and just so many people in the internal power structure of the Democratic Party are trying to get Biden to drop out of the race. And while I don't think that he performed very well during his debate with Donald Trump at all, I'm kind of worried because if the option is not pull Kamala Harris out and have Kamala Harris literally be a younger woman beating the shit out of Donald Trump during debates, then I don't know what gives. But apparently there's plenty of information floating around. Biden should drop out, Biden shouldn't drop out, Biden should drop out, Biden shouldn't drop out. And it's all very vibes-based, it's all very opinion-based, and that's kind of the essence of being a person that exists on the internet. Everything we do is vibes and opinions and everything else. But I'm concerned because there's already a Republican opposition that is very, very well formulated against Kamala Harris. And there is a support structure that is already well formulated in favor of Biden. So if another Democratic nominee were to be brought up in what feels like the 11th hour, who would it even be? And that person wouldn't have access to the donor money for advertisements that would be needed to unseat Trump in the first place. We saw what happened between Vladimir and Jamal Bowman. Money talked. Money made a lot of advertisements flow like wine. So it's basically gotta be Harris, right? But then you have a couple of problems here. She's not white and she's not a guy. And I'm not saying that because I don't want her to be in office for either of those reasons. I don't think those should be barring reasons. But for some stupid reasons, Americans are very trepidatious about giving a woman power. They're very trepidatious when the person who's getting power isn't white. Historically speaking, we haven't really had presidents outside of Obama that were not, you know, expressly white and male. It's not that I think that Donald Trump can't be beaten by Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris is likely the right person. But I also know Americans, by and large, are really stupid and bigoted. And because they're, by and large, really stupid and bigoted, they're gonna do the whole, well, I don't think that she's strong enough to be the nominee, so we're not gonna support her, that whole spiel. And when Biden was able to beat Trump, there was an unprecedented amount of votes that were cast in general by everyone, period. And when those votes were cast, we saw states that normally are bastions for red voters flip blue because there were Republicans who were principled enough to actually vote against the orange Cheeto. I am 100% convinced that there were a lot of Republican voters to thank for getting Biden in office. And yet, if Kamala is on the ticket, those same voters that value strength and traditional values will suddenly be in a bind. Think about it. A lot of those southern state borders are Baptist voters, right? And a lot of Baptist churches do not allow women, a lot of churches in general, do not allow women to be pastors. There is an active debate in those circles over whether or not women should have any kind of power. So you're going to have way harder of an uphill battle. It's already an uphill battle to get a Republican to vote for a Democrat. Now you have the uphill battle of getting those Republicans who, again, I am 100% sure were key in swinging Georgia. You now have those Republicans, and they have to fight the uphill battle of she isn't white, she isn't a he, and on top of all that, she's a Democrat. That's enough to make that person just not vote. And while them just not voting is better than them voting Republican, it still scares me because Americans are bigoted. I want to believe we're better than that. I want to believe that that's not what's going to happen, that that's not going to be the first thing on somebody's mind. But I've lived in this country all 32 years of my life. And I grew up in a household where a stepfather was allowed to be abusive because he was a man. That was the reason given. We could not speak against him. We could not do anything against him because the Bible said that would be bad. That is the environment I grew up in. That is what I know about the American South and how we operate when it comes to women. By and large, we do not treat them as equals. And even when we treat them as equals, we still find ways to make them feel lesser. We still find ways to make them feel like they are not as valued at the table. We do this in every fucking space, especially nerd spaces where they get creeped on. So, again, if those people are the people that I have to rely on to vote for Harris, that scares me. I don't want that to be the case. But nearly 2/3 of Democrats want Biden to withdraw, so that may be the uphill battle we're dealing with. Says nearly 2/3 of Democrats say President Joe Biden should withdraw from the presidential race and let his party nominate a different candidate, according to a new poll. But if they nominate a different candidate, that candidate will not have access to the same level of money and funding that is there. I believe this is one of those all roads suck moment. Kamala has a huge uphill battle that I sincerely wish she didn't have, because holy fucking shit, it would be a nice change of pace. Biden has an uphill battle that I wish he didn't have, because holy fucking shit, his brain apparently cannot keep pace. But every single option comes with a huge, just miasma of problems. Either you have the guy who everybody believes is senile, even though Trump has every single sign of senility that Biden does. We have the, at that point, president-elect, who has all of the uphill battles getting every voter that is not a progressive blue Democrat on her side. And then you have a third mystery nominee, a mystery nugget, if you would, where we don't even know how much of the DNC's money can even go to them legally. And that's terrifying. That is very terrifying. It says nearly 2/3 of Democrats say President Joe Biden should withdraw from the presidential race. The new survey done by AP Nork Center for Public Affairs Research conducted as Biden works to salvage his candidacy 2 weeks after his debate flop also found that only about 3 in 10 Democrats are extremely or very confident that he has the mental capability to serve effectively as president, down slightly from 40%. The findings underscore the challenges the 81-year-old president faces as he tries to silence calls from within his own party to leave the race and tries to convince Democrats that he's the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump. The poll was conducted mostly before Saturday's assassination attempt on Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. It is unclear whether the shooting influenced people's views on Biden, but a small number of poll interviews completed after the shooting provided no early indication that his prospects improved. Meanwhile, as Vice President Kamala Harris receives additional scrutiny amid the talk about whether Biden should bow out, the poll found that her favorability rating is similar to his, but the share of Americans who have an unfavorable opinion of her is slightly lower. Those are not things that you want to be said about you. Those are not things that you want to ever be said about you if you are in a race, that you have an under 40% approval rating, and that, don't worry, you're like a couple percentages higher than the last guy. That's scary. Joannian says what the Dems voter base wants sadly doesn't matter, as they will vote zombie Biden. The poll I really want to see is unaligned on Biden versus AOC. AOC would be an interesting experiment. I'm not gonna lie. If there's anybody that actually could invigorate young voters, it would be her. That would probably be the pick to go with. But she would have almost every problem that Kamala Harris does, with the exception that she can appeal to young voters way better than anyone else. Shasta says, what about one of your senators? The only senator I can think of that would be up for the task would be Raphael Warnock. And I don't even know if... Let's see here. How old is AOC? AOC's 34 years. AOC's birthday. Let's see here. AOC birthday. When does she turn 35? October 13th. There would be some legal wiggle room on whether or not she would be able to become president. Because she technically would turn the legal age to become a president before the actual date, but that would create another uphill battle for her as well. Jessa says, I really like both Warnock and Ossoff. I know less about Ossoff, but I've watched Warnock debate, and he is a fiery fucking debater. He is a great debater. Seeing Raphael Warnock lambaste the absolute garbage pails out of Donald Trump would be fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be happening because I don't think we're going to be getting that. I don't think that they're going to grab the people from the South for the presidency bid. As useful as that might actually be. Jeff Sproxy says, also proposed banning Congress people from trading stock. I feel like that would create a lot of problems as well. I think there's a certain level of willingness to be a puppet that you have to do in this particular situation. It's a sucky situation all around. It is a terribly sucky situation all around. And we gotta solve problems in our own house as well. So, like, Starbucks, on top of all this, people are thinking that Starbucks was, like, supporting the Republican National Convention, which created a whole smorgasbord of problems on Twitter. Nobody decided to actually fact-check the fact that Starbucks was not supporting the Republican National Convention. They were supporting the first responders outside the convention. But, you know, welcome to America. We like freaking out about things really, really hard and fast before we like actually figuring out problems, right? We gotta solve shit in our own house. We really do. But of the three options, mystery nominee, Biden, or Harris, unfortunately, I think Biden is the strongest of those three options. What people need to understand is we all want a different option, yeah, but I don't think that mathematically the other options check out very well. But most of the things I said about people wanting strong leadership applies to Kamala Harris in the same way that it applies to Biden, where there's plenty of people who will freak out about whether or not Biden is strong enough to do the job himself. Pointing weakness at Biden has been a huge Republican strategy. So, it sucks. It sucks. Because one of the biggest problems with Democratic voters, one of the biggest problems Democrats have had for years is energizing their voters. Because you know what old people do? If there's one thing you can trust old fucks to do, it is to go vote. They will do that. And if there's one thing you can trust young people to do, it is be very cynical and apathetic. And it's so hard to tell them, don't be cynical and apathetic. We don't know what the hell's going on. Apparently this weekend, there's going to be some big announcement from the Biden-Harris campaign. I guess we'll have to see what happens in the coming days. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.